Today, we must set the scene. I'm learning about our subject over the course of several rather static wiki pages, but I want you to be minded of something slightly more evocative. Picture gently falling sakura, a dry garden, maybe even a quiet stream if you're really going for it. It's here, out of the corner of your eye, that you're going to notice and encounter a yokai, a type of supernatural entity that finds its roots in Japanese folklore. Present in Japanese culture since the earliest days of recorded history, yokai are said to be personifications of unexplained phenomena, the ghost in the machine, varying in nature from benevolent to malevolent. They can present to us in a number of ways, from animal-like to humanoid to otherworldly, unrecognizable shapes. Some cute, some monstrous. Accordingly, there are several different types of yokai, each one representing something from the natural world, an element, a landform, a thought, or a feeling. There are the four sacred beasts: dragon, phoenix, white tiger, and the tortoise. There are the monstrous forms, the bakemono, subdivided into several categories. Animals, like the bakeniko, the kitsune, or the okami, or others like the oni, tengu, and kappa. There are even ghosts, the yurei. Yokai are a through line of Japanese culture, passed down across century, across era, across media, from prehistory to the present day. A flexible, malleable concept that can be moulded to the concerns of the day to represent whatever needs to be represented. In the present, there are festivals held all over Japan, where giant handmade yokai march through towns and cities, a mystically inclined Macy's Day Parade. For the game we are talking about today, lead developer Christopher Stair created a new kind of yokai, the Tentai-hana. They have many unique characteristics, for which we should look to the wiki for this game. Tentai-hana are inherently genderless, sprite-like creatures that emerge from flowers. They blossom and become sentient when the ejector of a kami blesses the seed or bud of a flower-bearing plant. The most common form of ejector from which Tentai-hana are born is a kami's tear. It is thought that due to their direct link with the sorrow of the kami, their blossomings are imbued with a tragic purpose and are commonly found wandering areas where recent tragedy has occurred. They possess two affinities, floral and faunal. The former dictates the appearance of the Tentai-hana. It will present in clothes resembling the petals of the flower it blossoms from. The latter determine its physical appearance. It will take on the characteristics of the local animal population. Which brings us to the lead character of the game we are talking about today, Bo. Bo is a Tentai-hana. They are a lotus fox, that is, born of a lotus flower into an area populated by kitsune. They are named after the Japanese word for staff, the weapon they wield. They have indeed been born into a world, a beautiful, vividly painted world, where tragedy has occurred. It's up to us to heal this world, and we're going to do so in the very best game of 2024. Hi, I'm Andrew. Welcome to Dialogue Tree. This is episode 9, Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus. Now, obviously, that's a spicy statement, just to grab your attention. Of course, what I actually mean is, this is my favourite game of 2024. And we'll get into why in due course. I've waxed lyrical, if that's not too complimentary a term for what preceded this, for a few minutes now to attempt to set the scene for this game, to highlight the attention that has been dedicated to creating a vivid world that exists between reality and fantasy. Well, let's go further. Let's really lean into this. Bo opens with these words. Drifting tier of moon, where bamboo of crimson loom, a teal lotus blooms. This is the vibe of Bo. This is a game that revels in its Japanophilia. Every pixel of this game is imbued with Japanese identity. Every flower, kitsune, ribbon, roof, Daruma doll. It exudes a quiet, calm beauty that sets you in that scene we imagined earlier, next to a river, on a carpet of sakura blossom. It needs to. It needs to charm you. Because this game is one of the most bracingly, most astonishingly, most mind-bendingly difficult games I have ever played. Let's get this out of the way. Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus, is a demanding game. One of the most demanding games. It's not a Souls game, but the combat is hard. It's not a roguelike, but you're going to die a lot. But platforming. Oh, the platforming. This is not a massacre platformer, this is not a splatformer, but the demands are similar. That's where the challenge lies. Your ability to press the right button at the right time will be tested to its limits and beyond. Like all platformers before it, it's so simple. You're here, so go over there. But so hard. The difficulty spikes in waves. The first skill check coming shortly after the tutorial area, a bracing smack to the face on the otherwise serene Sencho Bridge. You must adapt immediately to the mechanics you have learnt, completing an extended platforming challenge just to be rewarded with a boss that tests all those skills all over again. The game revels in these challenges, ebbing and flowing over its runtime before culminating in a sequence so eye-poppingly incomprehensible that it's still the only piece of gaming I've watched videos of after the fact just to try and understand what happened. Look at the patch notes for this game. The patch notes! Version 1.0.7, checkpoints, more save shrines, enemy HP reduced. Version 1.1, increased iframes, slowed down hazards, removed unnecessary spikes. Version 1.1.1, 1.1.3, 1.1.4, 1.1.7, more balance changes to level design and bosses, better buffs, whatever they can do to make this game less face-meltingly brutal. And yet none of this should put you off. I rolled credits on this game, which means you can. And this isn't a flex, because it took me around double the 10 hours stated on how long to beat. The YouTube gaming channel, Gaming with Joy, spoke about how a virtue of this game is its breezy 6-hour runtime. It took me over 3 times that. Bo, like the best challenging platformers, teaches you. It's a game that wants you to win. It has a wealth of accessibility options, and I'm willing to admit I needed to take advantage of one of these, turning the game speed down for the final boss. It received a lot of attention in the indie gaming sphere on release, though I'm not sure how sticky that has been, how long a tail it's had. I haven't heard much discussion of it since. I hope you have played it, but also I hope you haven't, because I want to convince you to. Bo, Path of the Teal Lotus, is a 2D side-scrolling Metroidvania with an emphasis on platforming, with a gorgeous, painterly art style and a wonderful, fully orchestrated soundtrack, which features a guest appearance from the revered Manami Kiyota of Xenoblade Chronicles fame. It was developed by Squid Shock Studios, published by Humble Games, and released on PC, PlayStation, Switch and Xbox on July 18th, 2024. It's currently at a generally favourable 77 on Metacritic and an 80 on OpenCritic. God is a Geek gave it 9.5. Noisy Pixel called it transitory platforming bliss, while Well Played called it a kind of magic, a path of pure delight. On the other side, Edge said not much here could be called outstanding. If we're hypercritical, even though the game's visualization of Japanese myth is a treat, it's not one we haven't sampled before. And there's further pushback from the likes of Silicon Era, GameSpot, and players, largely on the difficulty of the platforming. There are a couple of other things worth noting before we continue. One, members of the team behind this game worked on both AM2R, the acclaimed fangame remake of Metroid 2 Samus Returns, and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, one of the best examples of this genre released in recent years. The other, in the same week the game released, its publisher, Humble Games, collapsed. This left Squidshock without that support network at the most crucial time. That, bluntly, sucks. On July 25th, we lost access to the pipeline of critical systems without warning, Squidshock said. We can currently only manage the game on Steam, and we are able to push an update this week. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for consoles. Porting and QA support were tied into our deal with our publisher, and at the time of writing we still do not have that pipeline restored. However, steps are finally being taken to restore access. I mean, that sounds rough. So, they could have thrown their hands up and walked away. But they didn't. Much like Bo, much like the people playing their game, they kept going. They turned to Patreon, back to the crowdfunding model that initially launched the project on Kickstarter, and kept going. They supported and patched, and are currently in the final stages of developing a seemingly pretty significant piece of DLC, Tanuki Kabuki, due for release in 2025. Following that is what prompted this episode, to look back and appreciate a game that already feels like something of a lost classic of the genre. In Bo, you are Bo, the titular Tentei born of a lotus flower into a world where something has happened. Bo is a classic video game little guy, a small patable head balanced atop a robe made of leaves. Their pupilless eyes glow white, notionally creepy, but rendered cute by their diminutive stature. In the grand tradition of these games, of the dense, mysterious and dangerous world, nobody likes you. In fact, they are openly offended by you. What is this? They all say, with unfavourable comparisons to vermin usually following. And so it is in the opening area, where you meet Asahi, a semi-spectral kitsune, larger, floating authoritatively over Bo. I must say, I have been so far unimpressed with the Tentei that scamper about these forests, he says. And it would seem that on this evening, the celestial spit ejected from the heavens is especially egregious, and so incredibly tiny. What a jerk. Literate and evocative to be sure, but still a jerk. Your place within the world impressed upon you from the start. Asahi tells you to go back where you came from, lest he exercise you where you stand. You make to leave, but he stops you. There is something different about you. Your earring. This marks you as something different. Accordingly, an intrigued Asahi offers you a gift. This is a trick of the modern Metroidvania that I like. Beat you down, build you back up. An apparent villain swiftly hinted at being something more. This is intriguing, as is the standout moment of this tutorial. In the background, a great gold Shinto temple, a jagged beam of crackling energy bursting from its ceiling into the sky. The camera pulls back. A giant skeleton rises behind the temple, towering above it, striding across the landscape. You have your guide, and now you have your destination. But what was it that Asahi gifted you? Some tea. You drink, and immediately unlock your first ability. The most crucial one. The one around which this entire game is built. In movement, combat, and progression. Your staff. In most modern Metroidvanias, in most modern 2D games, you can double jump. Whether you can do so from the start, or whether it's a skill unlocked as you play, it's a fundamental component of these games, one of the building blocks, an understood piece of grammar. In Bow, it works differently. So, you jump. To jump again, you must earn the right to do so, by hitting something, an enemy, a torch, another obstacle. Doing so recharges your jump. So, you jump. You smack an enemy on the head. You fly into the air above them. You then jump again towards a previously out of reach platform, or to reach another enemy, and repeat the process. What this simple idea enables in-game is the ability to pogo stick across this world, across enemy, hazard and location. What this simple idea enables in-game is the most enjoyable, addictive and satisfying platform mechanic in any game I've played. It's appealing in every context. Just getting across one screen, or chaining multiple pogos to defeat enemies and traverse hazards, reaching one of the many secret areas hidden throughout Bow's world. And Squidshot go all in on this mechanic. It's fundamental to the game, to progressing through it. The entire world is both puzzle and playground, and in just a few minutes, you can become comfortable bouncing across it with abandon. The bosses, which we'll come to later, are the same. Challenges that test your ability to harness your staff to maximum effect. Now, this would all be for nothing if that platforming didn't feel good. It does. And that's no accident. In an interview with God is a Geek, Christopher Stair talks about the process of designing the movement in this game, and it's an interesting read. Quote, "I focused on designing Bow's movement to reflect how I wish all platformers were controlled. Air control and staying in the air were prioritised in almost every design decision." End quote. Well, that much is evident in how the game pushes towards the pogo mechanic. He goes on to say, quote, "Other important aspects of the player-controlled character included no acceleration, variable jump heights with input buffers, interruptible abilities, coyote time, and a consistent dash with an extra bit of skill expression in the shrine dash component. I wanted the player to feel completely in control at all times and have a sense of agency. The goal was to create an intuitive experience with the controls and physics. And while not everything is perfect, and some players might have opinions about things like the grounded attacks, we intentionally made some aspects feel sluggish in order to encourage players to stay in the air as much as possible, which is a core design philosophy of the game." End quote. Personally, I think they nail this. And that's what gives Bow its identity. That's what makes it stand out in a crowded field. Now, what you're doing with this staff is nothing groundbreaking. You are tasked with traversing Bow's world, to visit several interconnected areas, solving the problems within them to earn upgrades and abilities to allow further progression. There are around 10 areas, each stylistically distinct. The forest area, the ice area, and so on. It's a bit boxy and segmented. It's not as subtly knotty as something like Hollow Knight, where the world evolves gradually and organically the deeper you go. And at this point, we should look at the other gameplay elements that fill out this experience. And I should apologise in advance, because these are all things that you've seen before, and are so squarely my thing that it feels almost dishonest to recommend the game on their basis. These are the things that make Metroidvanias particularly sticky for me. Exploration and improvement. It may feel redundant to go through these, but if you're interested in games like this, I feel you may want to know how it compares mechanically to its peers, how it fits into the continuum, and how it stands out from it. you can heal. Your ability to heal is determined by your kettle, a tea kettle, a meter that sits in the top left of the screen. You fill this kettle by striking enemies. To heal, you drink from the kettle, pausing in place to do so. You must strategically do so in combat to ensure you don't take further damage. There is a side quest, the Infinite Kettle, that poses you riddles to solve in order to upgrade it. For example, where waters seethe between mountains peak, shake the earth to reveal what you seek. You'll want to do this. Tea is a theme in Bo. It's restorative and generative, an extension of personality, a source of communion. You share tea with the other characters in this world, moments of reflection and respite, away from the chaos elsewhere. There are multiple abilities, an air dash, a grappling hook. The best is a baseball bat. This is leaned on in a couple of environments, affording you the ability to whack certain particular objects across the environment, to either solve puzzles or solve enemies. There are many hidden upgrades. The aspect of Metroidvanias that will always most effectively get me, a fact that will be an eternal caveat to any recommendation I make. I am just a sucker for these things. I love games that enable, encourage and reward exploration, especially when those rewards are tangible, gameplay-altering things. It's the accessible face of the Souls game build, the ability to customise your playstyle, but in a readable, less arcane way. In Bo, these hidden upgrades are the Daruma dolls and the Omamori. The first of these are these exquisitely painted little tchotchkes, squat, round, slightly demonic. Each provides you with a special move. Each can be upgraded by collecting enough ink and visiting a particular NPC who paints on them, adding an ominous third eye. I found these special moves invaluable in dealing with the bosses. Should you be interested, I favoured Jingu, the homing weapon, so I could focus on getting the hell away from whatever horrors were being thrown at me, and not have to worry about actually getting close to whatever horror was doing the throwing. The second of these hidden upgrades, the Omamori, are Hollow Knight's charms, the Prince of Persia's amulets, Ori's skills. Presented as these colourfully decorated tags on string, each provides a passive buff, and each coming at a cost, meaning you can only equip Omamori up to a certain value. Hunting for these was one of the biggest time sinks for me. They have great names, like confidence, intuition, serenity, and refinement. I needed proficiency to batter my way through this game. You might too. There is another item, Kodama, which are some more classic video game little guys, hidden throughout the world. There is a hub area featuring various buildings, shops and characters. There is an architect here, who accepts Kodama in exchange for upgrading these locations. They can add save shrines and fast travel locations around the map. You can renovate the library to learn more about the lore of Bo's world. You can invest in the food vendor to access meals of increasingly aesthetic appeal, improving your health and healing. You can upgrade the weapon vendor to access weapons of increasingly destructive appeal. You will need such weapons to deal with the bosses in this game because, oh boy, those bosses. From the first major fight, Hashimi, a giant female-presenting head that emerges from the seas behind the Sencho Bridge, the bosses in Bo Path of the Teal Lotus are spectacular events, full of flair, drama and challenge. They are aesthetically consistent with the world around them, some more memorable than others, but all at least unique. Hashimi stands out for the skill check, for the sudden shift from relatively straightforward platforming to a frantic test of your understanding of the abilities you have learnt so far, and just the really cool setting. Another fight has you going up against a trio of enemies, reminiscent of the Mantis Lords from Hollow Knight. A real treat for those still dealing with the trauma of that particular encounter. My favourites are my favourites for reasons that shouldn't be disclosed, as doing so would lessen their impact. I will simply say that Gasha Dokuro was wonderful. A challenge that tests your combat skills, as well as your ability to puzzle platform vertically whilst being bombarded with additional enemies. Also, one late game boss takes a novel approach. A pure platforming challenge, with no combat. That will test the absolute limits of your reactions. This is the one that I mentioned earlier. I've had to watch YouTube playthroughs of this sequence after the fact to pass what happened, to try and internalise what on earth I'd just seen, what on earth I'd just done. This is a sequence so face-meltingly hard that it was one of the headline patches that I outlined earlier, to add balance to an insane challenge. Fair play to Squidshop for recognising this. Fair play to the speedrunners who blitzed it before the patch. Oh, yes. Gashadokuro. Let's talk about the music. That was the Gashadokuro theme, composed by Minami Kyoto. Well, I didn't care about dying repeatedly during that boss fight, not just because it's fun to play, but because of the immaculate vibes of that piece. Minami Kyoto is a composer who has worked on a variety of games for Nintendo platforms, including Smash Ultimate and Poké Park for the Wii. But it's the Xenoblade Chronicles series that she is best known for. She contributes this striking piece to Bow, in a manner reminiscent of Sea of Stars, scoring a contribution from Yasunori Mitsuda. The work is excellent, but fits perfectly with, and doesn't overshadow, the work of the main composer. Here, that is Moi Camargo. The score for Bow is lovely, and this is, quite astoundingly, Moi's debut work in video games. They achieve an effective blend of mature composition, each piece given time and space to breathe and evolve, with a strong ear for melody. In terms of instrumentation and of style, what Moi does here is complementary to the game, a traditionally Eastern audio aesthetic applied across the board. There are a number of highlights: Uzumaki Cave and Amaterasu's Hope, Path of the Teal Lotus, Centro Bridge, Sakura City, and all the boss music. Of those, Kitsura stood out for me. Now, I'm no professional analyst, so I'm fortunate here to be able to lean on an interview Moi gave to Kitty on Fire Records for more detail, in which they were asked how they achieved the particular sonic palette they did on the soundtrack. Quote, "I believe that the main element that allowed me to achieve a Japanese sound was the timbre from the Japanese traditional instruments. By using traditional instruments such as koto, shamisen or shakuhachi, you can very easily set a Japanese ambience. Of course, knowing and using traditional pentatonic scales and composing idiomatic music for each instrument matters too." Moi also goes into specifics about their process, how they go about creating short pieces of music designed for looping in games, and their approach to boss battle music. If, like me, you're interested in that sort of micro detail into a process, check out the link to the Dialogue Tree newsletter in the show notes, and that also includes links to where you can buy the soundtrack online. At the very least, I encourage you to listen. Now, it's a source of some stress to me that we're working in an audio medium here, making description of the visuals kind of embarrassingly redundant. I want to communicate the visual appeal of this game, to capture your imagination in the way it did mine, which is going to be a challenge. Even in screenshots, I don't think the appeal of this game is fully conveyed. Bow is a woodblock print come to life, a ukiyo-e anime, possessed of a visual language that commits absolutely to its aesthetic. This game is Japanese to its core: shrines and pagodas, persomas and gables, the aforementioned sakura blossoms, small pockets of manicured nature. No opportunity to charm you is missed. The characters in design and animation are wonderful. from the mystical kitsune, with their glowing eyes and flowing robes, to the yokozuna of the mountains and the inhabitants of Sakura City, with their exaggerated animations and handsome sprites, to the elegantly painted Daruma dolls and the squishy little Kodama, the cast seems to have leapt out of a classic film that gets an annual screening at your local art house cinema. The environments too, whilst predictable in nature, pop through their vibrant use of high contrast colours. The shades of coral and amber, of cerulean and sapphire, of bubblegum and lavender really are a treat for the eyes. There are a lot of games of this type, but in presentation, this is one of the most memorable for me. The Forest of the Crimson Bamboo, the frost-capped Mogumi Mountain, and the Sencho Bridge, with its gentle torchlight and fluttering ribbons, immediately evocative of a specifically Eastern aesthetic that we've absorbed through various media over many, many years. The golden-tinged Sakura City, drenched in sunlight and petal blossom, is entirely familiar in its looks, but no less effective for it. That's kind of representative of Bow as a whole, consistent with the music and all aspects of its presentation. A style you are likely very aware of, but elevated through skill and taste to the very highest level. I have no real read on the impact of Bow part of the Teal Lotus. As mentioned earlier, there were a number of reviews on launch, but it's not a game I've seen referenced across games media in the time since launch. This is not, he says with immense personal bias, the fault of the game, but a symptom of an endlessly busy industry and the impossibly fast-moving discourse that surrounds it, that rarely pauses for breath, that rarely stops to smell the tea. I know that the speedrunning community around this game is healthy, small, but still healthy, but I've no read on the sales. The fact that Squidshock have been developing DLC is encouraging. It must be worth their while, and I hope the release of that gives Bow a second life. That puts it back in the conversation, so that someday we may see games that cite it as an influence, with its commitment to both its gameplay hook and its all-encompassing style. This is at least 50% motivated by selfishness. I like jumping and hitting things, so almost anything that enables that gets a free pass from me. But Bow offered, and asked for, something more. A beautifully drawn world I loved looking at. Intense demands I loved struggling to meet. A refined brew, best enjoyed at the drinker's own pace. That's Bow, Path of the Teal Lotus. Thanks for listening. You can find a link to the show notes in the episode description. The artwork was produced by Pixel Benny, and you can find the show online at dialoguetree.cc. Talk to you next time.